right, guys, I'm excited with the big UFC 316 around the corner to be speaking to this next man, the owner and head coach of Syndicate MMA, John Wood. Thanks for joining me from the pleasure room, right? This is the pleasure room right here.
I don't know if we'll call that the pleasure room. The pleasure room's in the back over there. This is the
Ah,
man
shit.
cave.
Love it, man. 50
Yeah.
Shades of John. I love it. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
Dude, good to have you. Big fight around the corner. Merab's jumping back in there against Sean O'Malley. I saw you were talking with Inside Fighting about the scratch. What about this little guy over here?
Yeah.
Broken toe? How many more updates can this guy give us? What's going on?
It's one
with
of
the
those
toe?
things, man. I can't win with that guy. Like, I literally leave for a day and something goes on, but he loves to rile everybody up. And the thing is like he's as much as people think, oh, that's stupid or this or that, like he would never post something that was going to take him out of a fight, so like guys, if he's posting something, it's really not that bad and he's not going to bother, it's not going to bother him that bad. So I'm sure he broke his toe, but like, you don't understand, every camp and every fighter, even O'Malley says this, everybody's banged up, there's a level of just injuries that you go into fights with. That's the way it is, that's the way it's going to be, and that's the way it always is. So it's just one of those things that obviously Merab likes to post about a little more than everybody else. So it's all right though, he's all good.
So with that toe, like, I've had some toe stuff before, but the pinky toe, just like in Seinfeld, it's an important toe, but it's probably the appendage you can get rid of if you need to, right? It's the pinky toe. What you guys are going to need to maneuver around Sean's, sniper-like striking. Will that toe impact your footwork at all? It's not really it's not the big toe.
Yeah, not at all. And it's one of those things, like every injury, obviously, you don't want any injuries. That's the deal. Obviously, we'd love to go into camp and be injury free, but that just doesn't happen, especially the way these guys train, especially the intensity that Merab trains and how, the intensity and frequency that he trains, So that's nothing compared to some of the things we've had going into a lot of the fights. And, you obviously have heard a lot about, how he was banged up for Umar, and we've talked about that, but there's a lot of things that he doesn't talk about. He's not a guy that, he's had some massive injuries going into some massive fights before and been banged up and broken ribs and backs and things that are just, completely out of whack. But that's just the way it goes, so he's going to show up and do his job no matter what, and it's just the way he is, man.
So outside of all the injuries that he's posted, would I be correct to say that he's in much better physical shape than he was in the last one? I know there was like a lot of hidden stuff, right? They're like,
oh yeah, I mean, I don't even think it was that hidden.
I asked you're like, oh, he's doing great. And like afterwards, it's like he's got a missing leg. He is like
well, listen, man, it's not my job. I'm not going to say anything about anything until if he wants to speak about it, be open about it. That's fine. But I'm not exactly necessarily a fan of posting and talking about injuries and those things, even though, like I said, it's not going to affect him in the fight. But once he says it, then we can let it out. But yeah, the last camp was god awful. It was terrible as far as injury goes. It was terrible, and I've stated multiple times, like, I'd be lying if I didn't think about trying to pull him out. And I had even mentioned to him, like, hey, if going into this week that we're if we're not healthy or like we don't even get cleared, because honestly, like the big thing was I didn't think he was even going to get cleared by the commission had they seen his leg. So obviously worked out great, and watching him in sparring and watching the way he was performing in the room gave me all the confidence to know that he could do it. It's just a level of, like there was a week he didn't train because he had a rib out. There was a week he didn't, he couldn't even put on shin pads because his leg was so jacked up. It was all the way to literally the day before the fight. We didn't know if the commission was going to take a look at that leg and clear him. Luckily, he pulled the old pant trick, the one leg, and show him the same leg twice, and they bought it. And so,
is that what he did? Is that what he did? He did like a little trick? What?
Yeah. So we were sitting back there, and I was sitting across from him, and I was like literally shitting a brick because I really didn't know what was going to go on. But he, you know, they're like, hey, check your leg. He had sweatpants on, so he pulled up his pant leg on his good leg, and pulled it back down. And the guy looked at the paper. He said, "Let me see the other one." And he pulled up the same one. And the guy, I just started laughing. But like I
Dude,
said,
so if the guy wasn't dumb and you guys weren't able to pull this off, maybe there wouldn't have been a fight, right? Like if you would actually gotten the right leg.
it was a really good chance, honestly.
Yeah.
I would have given it a 50-50 or even more than a 50-50. Just the way it looked, you know, it still had kind of an open, it was still kind of an open wound. I mean, you can see his leg to this day. It's still scarred up like crazy, but you know, that's just like fighting's crazy, man. And fighters do crazy things, and that's how we get paid, you know. So it sucks to go through all this horse shit when you know, and the fighter like with Merab, there's never a time you'll really have to kill him to keep him out of the cage. You know, it'd have to be something that's physically not working. But I've never seen a guy who can just flip on the switch, no matter how bad the weight cut is, no matter how bad the injuries. Fight day, that is a guy who, when the weight cut is over, you'll see the happiest man on earth, just so excited to fight. Like he's just so ready to fight. So that's the biggest thing, is just getting through the weight cut and getting, you know, he's just miserable for that. But once that switch goes, I've never seen anybody who, just like I said, he's so game day, he's so ready to go. It doesn't matter what his leg could have been hanging on by the tendons, you know, open woods, it wouldn't have mattered. He's ready to go.
Listen, he's an incredible champion in that octagon. He's also an incredible champion outside of the octagon. Have a look at this video of Ray Longo breaking down seeing Merab outside of in camp life.
I mean, and then I see Merab in the corner. I go, this guy's all over the place. Chelsea Chandler, he's in the corner again. He's with all the women. This guy's a scoundrel to the nth degree.
He is.
How is this guy in the corner from different parts of the world? I look up and I see Merab hanging over the octagon. 2 women fight.
So safe to say the champ stays busy in and out of the ring, John.
Dude,
I saw him in Sydney even for UFC.
Yeah, no,
like, he's everywhere, bro.
He really loves fighting. He loves the fans. He loves being part of it, you know, but in a good, positive way. Like he's not out blowing money, partying in the clubs, doing his thing. Like he loves to go to the events. He loves to be with the crowd. He loves to be with the fans. Like I said, he's really is a people's champ when it comes to that kind of stuff. He'll make time for everybody. You know, if we're driving down the street at a fight and like there's a crowd full of people, we stop, he'll jump out of the van and sign autographs and do whatever for an hour straight. It's crazy sometimes. Like we have to literally like physically grab him, pick him up, take him back into the van. He really does love the stuff, you know. He's embracing all the extra things that he has to do as a champion. You know, there's a lot that comes with it. There's a lot more, you know, media. There's a lot more appearances, and he does it, and he does it all, and mixes in, like when you see him over at the fights and see him cornering somebody, it's not usually because he was supposed to. He was just at a fight and he knows somebody, and somebody said, "Hey, you want a corner?" He's like, "Hell yeah!" And he jumps in. You know, like he does everything. Like the guy really. And the crazy thing about it is that with all that being said and done, it's always training focused first. Like he always does what he needs to do. He never misses the obligation of doing what it takes to stay champion. He never misses work in the room, time training. If he's away, he's training somewhere else. But, you know, once a fight and the camp is locked in, boom, you know, like he might have to go somewhere for a day or two, but he never skimps on the training. He's never not in the room training with his partners, helping people. It's awesome to see as a champion.
So this rematch, man, the build-up, it's actually pretty friendly. It looks like, you know, Sean had a lot of nice things to say about Merab. He's been staying off social media. Him and his coach is really sort of focused on getting him in the best shape possible because they're really sort of seeing Merab as a huge challenge here. What are you expecting fight week? Like last time, I know Merab had this whole thing with Tim Welch and there was yelling in the corner. Obviously, like any opportunity you can get as a coach or a camp to take the person off their game plan, you're going to take it. Are you expecting more of that this time around? Have you guys spoken about like these little kind of shenanigans that might happen during fight week? Or you think this time around the guys are going to take this approach a little bit differently because they're just focused in on this one?
I mean, if I'm them, I would be more focused in at the task at hand. And I think obviously they saw how the first one went.
Mm.
There's been a lot of injury call outs or lighting call outs or this or that, So who knows? There's always something in a fight where you could say, well, I lost because of this, or I lost, there was a strong breeze when I threw my jab and it blew my hand off the mark, like somebody
Yeah.
spilt the beer and some of it got in my eye, whatever. There's always excuses to be had. And some of it might be true. It really might be. I'm sure O'Malley was hurt. Like I wouldn't say that they're lying. I'm sure the lighting was weird. The things were whatever. But obviously, I don't think they took. I don't want to say they didn't take Merab serious in the first one, but nobody really. You've seen it now time and time again. Nobody seems to really take Merab seriously in their fights at first. I think they do now. I think he's proven enough that he's come to the fact that okay, this dude is absolutely a savage when you get in there with him. But I think they're going to take this one more serious. I think that they've obviously probably locked down in camp. And if those things are true, that he's off social media and he's doing this and not doing that and focused on training, then I would expect a little bit of a different fight. I would expect a tougher go. I would expect that they're going to come in because let's be honest, if Sean doesn't win this one, there ain't no instant rematch after this. There isn't, the path gets a lot harder and he's going to have to climb back up it. This is probably the first time I think I've ever even seen anybody get an instant rematch off a loss and not have to go win a fight, when he never even, I think he defended once. So it's not like he was one of these guys that, necessarily deserved the instant rematch. So I think that's got to be in their head. I think Tim's a great coach. I think he's probably prepped him and primed him ready to go for the things they saw and they felt in the first fight. And it's my job to prep him and prime him to think about the things that they think they're going to change. That is the chess match in MMA. That's the point of like, we're playing, okay, it's all educated guesses. I tell my guys all the time, everything from coaching to fighting, I'm going to throw this punch and I hope it lands. It's an educated guess. This guy's not going to block it. He's going to move this way. He's going to move that way. So that's exactly where we're at right now is obviously they probably saw some things and have gone back and watched that fight 10,000 times. And so have I, and so has Merab, so has everybody. And, it's going to be an interesting one because this is our first rematch. This is Merab's first rematch. So being in there with that guy the first time, I can tell you, it's surprising. It really is. It's one of those, oh shit moments where this is not what I thought it was going to be, so that moment, that element of surprise isn't going to be there, or maybe it is because we've changed some things too. So we'll see. A fight like this at this caliber with two fighters like that, Sean's an extremely dangerous fighter. Like I said, he's got a good coach in his corner. He's got knockout power. But at the end of the day, obviously, I think that I have prepared, we have prepared our fighter to come out with the hand raised. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't think the outcome is going to change. I do think it'll be a different fight though.
You mentioned, how Tim, I like Tim, by the way, he's a cool dude. He's come on the show before, but you mentioned how he made the comment about the sphere lighting impacting Sean's visibility or whatever he was throwing strikes. What was your reaction when you first saw those comments hit the internet? You would have had a reaction, surely, right? Like, were you and the team? What were you and the team doing?
That was my reaction right there. That was one of those. I use that.
That's got to be up there, right?
I use this emoji a lot when I see these things. This is the, I usually just like, oh my god. But listen, that really could be true. Like, I don't know. Like, who's for me to say what somebody felt or what Sean felt? I'm certainly not the guy in there throwing punches. And so, like I said, I'm going to take them at their word. Do I think that you should say some of those things out loud in public? I don't know. Like it's sometimes it sounds a little whatever. I don't even want to comment to that, but it's not something I would come out and say, hey, the lighting, affected some of the punches. But hey, man, you know what? To get out there and say everything goes right and they land one of those punches and you might come back and see, it was the lighting. Who am I supposed to, how am I, I can't really call him a liar. Like, I don't know. We don't know. It sounds a little cheesy to me, but it's fine. Like you have the right to say whatever you actually feel or think, or whatever you didn't even feel and think. That's America for you. You can say some of the dumbest shit you've ever wanted to say. on a live public forum. It's people's choices to believe it and how they react to it. So take it as a grain of salt. Like it's one of those things. It's entertainment. It's entertainment because here we are talking about it. 10 interviews later of the lighting of the spear. So but hey, again, like I said, to his credit, it was weird in there. It was strange. It was different. It was really different. Walking out was different. It was the whole experience in there was different. Everything. It was crazy. So that could be something that maybe did affect him.
Yeah, it's pretty wild in there, actually. Hey, I was going to say, you mentioned the deserving part. A lot of fans are a little bit like, same mind as you. Like, Sean, obviously great fighter, but we would have rather saw him fight someone else, maybe get a win, build up to the rematch with Merab down the track, and Merab maybe fighting like a Sandhagen or somebody else in the division. Like, do you think it would have been maybe made a bit more sense, outside of the money side of it, I guess, to give another contender a shot here, just from the perspective of, like you mentioned, there is that kind of question of like, does he deserve that rematch,
Absolutely. I believe, first and foremost, I'll say it time and time again, the UFC knows what they're doing. They are way
There's business
smarter
stuff behind the
they
scenes.
are way smarter than any of us when it comes to the business of it. So I never knock them of who deserves or who shouldn't or who should this. We don't know what's gone on the back end or who was available, who wasn't available when they're making these cards. There's a lot of stuff that plays in that we'll never know about. So when it comes to making those decisions, they make the best decisions. Sometimes, it's not the decisions that we want as fans or as fighters and coaches and teams, but it is what it is, and that's where you have to kind of learn to deal with it. Do I personally think that he should have had to have fought somebody else? Yes, I do. In the realm of the rankings and who's there, I think it would have been a bigger build up. I don't think there's much. O'Malley has a huge fan base though. Like so, I mean, I think between him and Tim, Tim's got a huge fan base. He's got hundreds of thousands of followers. So there's something there that they obviously see, and he has star power. I don't know how much that plays into this fight anymore. But I would have liked to have seen him, maybe fight Jan again and had to fight a true contender or somebody to get back to the title. But again, that's not our decision. So in my personal opinion, I don't believe that unless you've defended that belt multiple times and you've become a guy who just like if Shevchenko or Whaley or even Pereira or Adesanya, these guys that defended those belts, John Jones, if you lose that belt, then I believe that you've been at the top for so long. Maybe it was just an off night, and you get the chance to have to go, to get that belt back. But that's, like I said, that's my opinion on getting those instant rematches for somebody who's defended multiple times and is basically a legend in the sport. I don't think that's the case here.
I think my move would have been, and this is like, I don't know what people would have thought about this, but I'd love to see Aldo versus Sean, UFC like 350 or whenever he was ready. It's a good build-up fight, and I think Aldo deserves better than what happened to him.
Agreed.
When he thought, like, what's the point, man? What's the point? This is the fight. Like, that would have been a great fight, at least for Aldo to test himself in. Yeah. And anyway, something like that would have been great. You obviously, Merab, he's coming in here. He's healthier. You guys were really able to dominate Sean in that first fight. Do you see this rematch kind of looking similar to that first fight, or with Merab having, both legs under him and being much healthier here? And obviously, Sean's going to come in healthier too. But with you guys being healthier here and being able to dominate at the level that you were last time, do you see this fight actually looking a little bit different to this first fight that they had?
I mean, without giving too much, obviously, of the game plan of what I think and what they think and all this, I see it going. Yes, I see it being a different fight for a short period of time. I see it being a little more, difficult to maybe find him at first. But like I said, we've got a few tricks up our sleeves to make sure that we counteract, whether Sean wants to completely stay away or whether Sean wants to charge in guns a-blazing. We're ready for whichever version. And I think that either one of those is really a possible situation. He might want to come out and just say, screw it. Like this guy's got too much cardio. I can't make a decision. I've got to get on him. I've got to finish. Great. we're good for that. Or, okay, I'm going to run and pick and poke and find my lucky shot. We're good for that also too. So, whatever the opportunity and options that provide, that he provides us in the fight, we're ready for. Like I said, I do think the first two rounds are going to look different. And then past that, I don't think, it's going to look different after that also too on our side.
Did you speak to him about the kissing on the back? Are we going to avoid that? You're like, all right, bro, come on, brother. We don't need to do this one here.
I get like so much shit for people, online whenever I do these interviews or I say something like, hey, my goal is to get Merab to try to, start looking for finishes. Start to try to attempt and doing these things because he's in there having such a fun time. I think he forgets that aspect of it, that's a huge part of his game. He's got great submissions. He's got great ground and pound, but like I said, he just gets in there and has such a good time. So all I'm asking for from him is to trade some kisses for some submissions, and then kiss him after. Put him unconscious, and then you can kiss him as long as you want to. I don't care. That's my trade-off. But like I said, it's so funny because all the keyboard warriors, everybody get on me. Well, you don't know your fighter. He's not a finisher. No shit. That's why I'm saying I'm trying to get to that position. I would like to see that. Whether that happens, that's up to Merab. He's the one in the cage. He's the one that makes the final decision on what he's doing and how he's doing it. I'm there to give him some technical structure and advice of what I think is going to happen in this fight, what I see in the fight, and so if anything, the threat of a submission just makes his cardio and every aspect of his game just that much better. Hitting with harder punches, threatening some submissions, whether we get it or not. Like I said, I'll go on record. Sean, I don't know that Sean's been finished. Sean's an extremely hard fighter to finish. He's great, other than the thing with the leg when we hurt his shin or ankle or whatever that was. I mean, that's not a guy that I expect us just to go in there and run through and finish like that. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try. It doesn't mean that, as a fighter that's not what we want. So we focused on different areas in each camp, and each camp Merab gets better and better and better and better. So it unlocks another door. Each camp, his footwork gets better. So we're able to work on more striking. His striking gets better. So we're able to work on more takedowns. His takedowns get better. So we're able to work on more control, and vice versa. It just goes on and on and on. And like I said, there's a reason why this man is champion. He is still getting better. We're at like 60% and still downloading information. It blows my mind every time I work with this guy, every week, every month, every camp, how much better he just learns and picks up and processes things. And he's really starting to believe in himself now and what he can do. So like I said, there's going to be some different little tricky things that you're going to see in this fight.
Yeah, man, there's also... All right, guys, before I get back to the interview, I just want to thank my sponsor, MANSCAPED, for making this program possible. Did you guys know with the code word submission, you guys could save 15% off. That's 15% off plus free shipping from all of the great products on the Manscaped website. But I want to talk to you guys about the Chairman Pro. The Chairman Pro is a high-tech, data-approved grooming upgrade, which is perfect for the Father's Day over there in America. But if it's not Father's Day, it is an electric face shaver that can tackle up to 5 days of growth and features 2 interchangeable blade heads. It's waterproof. The battery life is awesome, up to 75 minutes of runtime on a single charge, but it also showcases the battery level so you know when it's time to recharge with a display. Of course, it's got the travel lock, the LED spotlight, and most importantly, the 2-year warranty the Manscaped comes with. Manscaped, of course, has the Lawnmower 5.0, the Beard Hedger, and all sorts of other products, some of the most comfortable underwear out there as well. So go to manscaped.com, use the code word submission, get 15% off and free shipping today. And guys, I also want to talk to you about our friends at SAILY. That's right, SAILY, the best eSIM on the market today. What is an eSIM? Let's say you're traveling, you need to make phone calls, you need to download data, you need to be able to use your phone. Don't line up in a stupid queue and replace your SIM card, lose your current SIM card, and sign up to some plan that lasts for months. Use SAILY today. You just have to download the app. You just choose the location where you're at. You choose the amount of data that you want, and you are sorted, my friend, to use your phone wherever you go, whatever country you go to. It's easy to use. Like I said, all you need to do is just download the app. You avoid roaming costs, never ran out of data because you're able to update it and increase it wherever you go. It's one eSIM for all of your trips, so you don't have to change SIMs everywhere you go. And it's got global and regional plans as well. get up to 100 gigabytes of data or as little as 1 gigabyte of data for a week or half a year. SAILY is your place to go for everybody out there who's looking for an eSIM. So download the SAILY app now and use the code submission or go to saily.com/submission. The link is in the description below and you guys get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. That's 15% off your first purchase. Try SAILY today. And now back to the program. The confidence of being a defending champion, which we've seen transform fighters into another level too. Exciting times in the division as well, right? Like Merab's friend Patchy Mix, he's going to be fighting as well on the same card. And that makes things really interesting because I feel like the division was a little bit quieter. Now you got a couple of potential contenders. I know you're not the one making decisions, neither am I. And like you said, the UFC is always going to go the way that they go, but personal preference. If Patchy goes out there and makes a statement on the same card as you guys, do you think he overtakes Cory Sandhagen as the next contender here?
No, I don't think so. You know, you're coming in and he is a former champion and Patchy is a great fighter. And I personally like Patchy a lot. I've worked with him. He's been in the gym. I think he's a great dude and very deserving of being in the UFC. And, you know, I don't think, I think a lot of people might be looking over Batista too, but Batista's one of the tougher outs in the division. You know, he is a super tough fight. Like that dude can make you look bad wherever it goes. So it'll be really interesting to see it. If Patchy does go out there and just walk through him and sub him in the first round or something, I think you're going to start getting those talks. But I really think that's number 10. I think you got to jump up, you know, maybe 1, 2 more, and then he's there. You know, I think there's Sandhagen obviously was the best at the next, and Jan. I think those two guys are more deserving than anybody else right now in that position. Maybe those two should fight, or one of them should fight Patchy, you know, whatever the situation be. But in my mind, I think he's, you know, 2 more fights away, honestly. Maybe 1 more fight. I don't know. Like I said, if we, you know, we go out and we handle, you know, business with Sean and then booked with Cory, or Cory falls out. That's the thing with this sport is like injuries, timing, availability can change everything. Last man standing can change everything. If you're the guy, and I've said this before, like we had the situation with Khalil where we were number 8 fighting Pereira, you know, for the title because there was no one else left. And also they knew it was going to be a fantastic fight. Khalil's style against Pereira was just had banger written all over it. So, you know, sometimes, like I said, just through attrition of staying there, being there at the right time, in the right place, that's where, you know, how fights are made sometimes.
Yeah, exactly right, man. We'll talk about the Cory fight down the track. I know you're focused on Sean anyway, so we'll talk about it next time when you come back, if that is going to be the next fight. But with Patchy, I know you mentioned earlier in this interview, one of the things with Merab is people haven't been in there with him before, so they don't really know what they're in for. Whereas Patchy, he's actually sparred with Merab and they've been around, they've trained together for a while. But that's different. That's different to fighting people. Sparring people and fighting people, 2 different worlds. You could be trying to help someone get ready for a fight. You could be mimicking another opponent. You might be going light because that's, you know, not an actual fight scenario. But does that make things a little bit more interesting for you if that is a potential matchup? Just the fact that Patchy does know Merab a little better than some of the former opponents that he's had.
I mean, I think he knows him as much as anybody else does. He has, you know, an idea of the game. They've grappled a lot together. But fighting that man is a totally different story, you know, and I imagine fighting Patchy is a totally different story too. But I've seen some exchanges. I know how hard one is going and how hard the other's going, and how, you know, maybe one doesn't really care about having, you know, an ego or competing in the room so much or whatever. So I never take one. I don't really ever talk about, you know, who got who or this or that or who bested who in sparring or grappling or these situations. But, you know, a fight it's totally different. It's totally different. So, you know, again, nothing but respect for Patchy. And I kind of figured we'd be having these talks at some point about this. You know, with just the level that he's been competing on, and now being able to come over to the UFC, it's something that we knew was going to happen. But it doesn't worry me. It's no different than everybody thought Umar was this unbeatable, crazy, you couldn't beat Nurmagomedov. They're going to take your back, they take you down, they this, they that, they're all this stuff. He took him down. Umar took him down, took his back for 0.3 seconds, and we got right back up. And it wasn't, that's supposedly a death sentence with him. So there's always ways around people's games, and again, that's the joys and funs of camps of figuring that out. But absolutely, Patchy will be a somebody who will be right up there pretty quick. And he's a tough fight. He's a tough out for anybody. So we'll see. Obviously, we've seen so many fighters come over from different organizations as champions, as this, as that, and sometimes those bright lights, those UFC lights hit a little different, or maybe they don't hit a little different. You can't see what you're punching at. We don't know, but it's one of those things that we just have to see. Like I said, I think Patchy's going to do real well. But it's a tough first go. So we'll have that talk after this first one.
Hey, listen, it's a good problem to have some fun fights, exciting fights to make, right? Like, this is what you want. Hey, just quickly, you mentioned Khalil. Interesting position you guys are in, right? You guys are going to be fighting Hill. That's a great fight. And obviously you're focused on Hill. But there is a little opportunity here that if you do beat Hill decisively and come out unscathed, the champ is looking for a fight.
Absolutely.
And Khalil is kind of like the perfect fight for Ankalaev. Like, we know the UFC wants someone who's exciting, who can make it an exciting fight, someone with some name value.
Yeah.
Do you see a little window here if things play out perfectly to maybe capture that bag, secure the bag, and get in that Ankalaev fight?
Absolutely. Again, when it's so hard to get a path to the title, it's so hard to even earn a title shot. But when you lose it, a lot of times there isn't a direct path. There isn't an easy route to go back with. And not everybody's Sean O'Malley, who has, the clout or the following or the star power that he has. So it's one of those things where usually you're going to have to go back and climb that ladder again. But again, talked about earlier, this is one of those situations where if Khalil goes out and does what I know he can do and what I think he's going to do, I think there is a direct path right back to that title. And I really do think that how this fight plays out is going to direct that path, a little bit quicker, a little bit, maybe sooner than later. And if we do go out there and say we have a great fight, we're able to put Hill out before the end bell, I think that does put our name right back in the mix for the title shot. I really do. I think the division is kind of it's a little all over the place right now. Khalil's fighting style, there's never going to be a boring Khalil Roundtree fight on his half. He's never going to not come out there trying to finish you. That's not ever going to be in his toolbox, of I'm going to just win a decision. He's going to try to fight to knock you out from bell to bell. So, and a lot of times when he does that, it happens. So I think just stylistically and coming off that Pereira fight, showing that what he's capable of doing, I think that does put us in a great spot.
Yeah, man, for sure. And obviously you got Olberg and a couple other people there, but if things go to plan, I think you guys would be in a great position. I'd love to see it as well. All right, John Wood, you're about to travel the world. You're going to the UFC 316, and then you're going to you're going to Georgia, you're going all over the place, obviously to corner Khalil. So I wish you well on your journeys, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me on Submission Radio. Best of luck. And man, I can't wait to see a couple of big pivotal fights, along with some other big fights, of course, from your gym as well coming up. So I'm wishing you all the luck in the world.
Hey, thank you so much, man. And I appreciate you having me on the show anytime.